the Metro South, executive director of the Metro South CID. For you here is Wade Carroll. Wade is going to present to you. He's for Metro Analytics. He's going to present to you the Freight Cluster Plan. This is a steering committee meeting number 2. A little history about this project. This is a planning study that was awarded to the Metro South CID last year. This is funded by Atlanta Regional Commission, DeKalb County, as well as the Metro South CID. So we're going to go through this presentation today. We have very little participation at the very end of this, so please participate as much as you can, and we're going to go through that process here shortly. So Wade, you want to go ahead and begin and introduce your team?
Sure. Thanks, Larry. And also with me helping out today and facilitating as well as Caroline Evans from Blue Cypress on our team. And we also have several others from our team listening in quietly. So looking forward to a good discussion today. So briefly, we want to just give you an update of the study. We have made some good progress and where we are, moving forward, and also want to tell you about some of our outreach activities that have been completed. I think what you'll find is that a lot of our outreach activities have paralleled what we've actually found in our inventory and assessment report. So we're really starting to set the baseline for our overall needs assessment. And so later on in the meeting, we'll have an interactive exercise where we'll gather some input on some truck parking, some mobility needs, and also, some planned projects that are already in the works. And then, of course, and then we'll wrap up by kind of telling you what's next. So, where we are is we have basically, we were right into the cusp of kind of starting to develop our work program. And so the two main inputs for that work program are the inventory and assessment report, which is currently under review internally, and the traffic study, which is to be wrapped up here at the end of this month. We also have a best practices report that we'll also be looking at for potential ITS improvements as well that we'll draw from. So the key dates that I really want to make this committee aware of is that, we are moving fast. We designed this schedule to conform to the ARC's tip process, tip amendment process, and so forth. So we are looking to have a draft work program done by the end of August, and work with the DeKalb County, with ARC and our stakeholders to really refine that by the end of October. So the key dates there are, of course, the end of October. We should have our work program wrapped up. And then that's when we'll be coming back to you and sort of presenting our overall findings and what the mission is. And then at the end of moving into the holidays, we will start developing the overall document itself. So just real briefly, we have undergone a lot of outreach activities. I think some of you, in fact, on the call have been part of those. We have, we've done stakeholder interviews, some online surveys, the trucker surveys, which were also were quite interesting, and we have a wide variety of outreach that we're doing. I think what you're going to find, though, is the main common theme is that we're finding out the same things through each of these, and that's good. So it really does kind of fortify what we're finding in our overall assessments. So the interviews, we have done, I think we're up to, 11 interviews completed, and it's still ongoing. We're still working with CID members and logistics professionals, as well as the neighborhoods to work through some of these issues. These issues that we're hearing from the interviews, you're gonna hear them over and over again today. And a lot of these with safety and the maintenance and issues, and as well as delays. Inadequate parking is definitely an issue that we'll talk about later on and want some input on. And then the community concerns, and of course those trucks on residential streets. And as we'll talk through later, a lot of that has been elevated by the Cedar Bridge Road, Cedar Grove Road Bridge closure. And so as we talk through that, as some of you were aware of last time, we're still working to sort of resolve some of those issues with DeKalb County. The online surveys, we've just now started to get some feedback on those. I do have the code up here in case anybody wants to scan their phone real quick and fill it out for us. But again, they really are we are hearing the same things with congestion. Also from a signal timing perspective, I guess along Moreland Avenue, which is actually an RTOP corridor, but with some of these shifts in traffic that have happened as a result of the bridge closure, it's made it awfully difficult to do signal timing in an effective manner. And then of course, the suggested improvements we've gotten, some folks want some turn lanes at a specific location. The road widenings is really more associated with actual intersection improvements and kind of widening those radiuses and of course improved signage. So the trucker surveys were interesting as well. They were a mixture of independent and fleet drivers. So we did get a lot of folks, and folks did come out we actually did these in person at specific locations throughout the CID. And I think, and so I want to compliment PEQ and Inga for the job they did on that, because that was in person and out in the streets. But they did have a nice mix of local and long haul. So it was a very diverse set. One of the things we did find, though, is that, some of the destinations where they came from, surprisingly, were not Savannah. A lot of folks were coming from, the folks that were the long haul came from places outside the region and from places, as you see there, far away from the CID. Their challenges in delivering is the heavy traffic. And, there's a clarification there. I think the heavy traffic, and I think some of that may be just referring to the region as a whole. But I think from a signalization point area, the 285 and Boulder Crest Road, the interchange modification at Boulder Crest Road should help out with some of the issues that were identified. And a critical issue that we already know about is the lack of overnight parking. And we'll talk through a little bit about some of the work we're doing with the truck parking as we move forward. And of course, the biggest safety concerns, again, from a regional perspective, are the construction zones. I guess, in the Atlanta region, you're going to get a lot of those. And of course, the traffic as well. So we do have a social media presence. So we certainly are, it's really more to get folks involved and more to get folks involved in meetings such as this and so forth. So we are working with that. And so far, the responses have been pretty good, but we're still working to keep that social media and just try to get input on our online surveys as well. I'm going to turn it over briefly to Larry because in parallel to this freight cluster plan, there are some efforts that really will impact the plan itself. And so even though they're not particularly in the scope of services or something, that there are issues that are being addressed within the plan itself. So Larry, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Wade. And everybody, I apologize. I came down with a really bad cold last night. So if I have to put myself on mute as I'm coughing, I'll have to do that. So I apologize in advance. The Cedar Grove bridge closure, that occurred in March of 2020. DeKalb County is working with Norfolk Southern to obtain permitting. They're in the design phase, moving into selecting the contractor late this fall with an anticipation open date of sometime late next year. That has been a challenging issue for the CID. I think everybody in the business owners, obviously, in the eastern side of Moreland Avenue really have experienced a difficult situation with access to their businesses with the bridge being closed. You don't really understand sometimes how important a bridge is until it's actually out, particularly a bridge like Cedar Grove, where there is a significant amount of tractor trailer trucks that access the east side of Moreland on an everyday basis. So obviously there was a need to find alternate route, and the only alternate route is Henrico Road. which is a little bit to the north of Cedar Grove. And of course, the problem with that is when Norfolk Southern, which we'll talk about here shortly, when Norfolk Southern actually stops their trains because of freight issues down upstream in Atlanta, you have both crossings closed, which is quite bad, which means that the only way that truckers can hit their businesses on the east side of Moreland is to go through neighborhoods. And obviously that poses significant problems both for the neighborhoods where there is not supposed to be any tractor trailer movements through their areas. Of course, it poses a problem for the CID board members as well, because we receive all the complaints. So DeKalb County is moving forward with that, making those changes, design work, and we hope to have it open by late 2022. Boulder Crest improvements, GDOT is planning to move forward with the construction of that, I believe late next year or early part of 2023. That will be a welcome, very much welcome improvement at that interchange, as Inga experienced through the comments from the truckers that utilize that interchange on a daily basis. Zone overlay district changes. So don't want to get too much detail with this. I can most probably speak for the next 3 days on that topic. Back about 10 years ago, the county developed a overlay district called the Boulder Crest Overlay District that encompassed the residential areas to the east of 675, as well as the entire CID boundaries. When that overlay district was adopted, it over a period of time, it became a real hindrance to new development in the CID, new industrial development. And so the CID began working with the county about a year and a half ago, asking them to please consider modifications to the overlay. Here in the last several months, Commissioner Johnson, working with the homeowner associations east of 675, brought all of us together to sit down and look at changes to the text amendments, permitted uses, development standards, everything you could think of in that overlay district, which is a very comprehensive overlay district. Many of the requirements in that overlay district just did not pertain to an industrial area. And I think when it's all said and done, I think the county realized that after we got into it. The homeowner associations working with us understood that as we began to pick apart the overlay district one line at a time over a period of about 7 or 8 weeks. And so that was when it's all said and done, we made a number of changes. The CID did, the homeowner associations had a few tweaks to it as well. At the end of the day, the board adopted it on June the 22nd. It was a very positive interaction with the county and the adjoining 3 homeowner associations. And I think those associations represent close to most probably 1,000 people. So we had 3 homeowner associations, the commission board, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Terry, and the CID working together to make those changes. And so they're now adopted, and everybody didn't get everything we wanted, neither us or the associations, but it was a really good compromise. And that was, I think, very important to go through that process and have it come out as successful as it did. Freight roundtable meetings. Amanda Olmsted, who's working with us as our marketing person for the CID, Amanda came together and introduced an idea to the CID board and myself on developing some internal kind of freight roundtable meetings with a select group of business owners. And we have gone through one roundtable meeting, and we're going to have another one here in the next couple of weeks. And it is, again, to reach out to the business community and find out what their concerns are and their needs, and to have some open discussions about issues of concern to them. Norfolk Southern is a story in itself. And I don't want to get too much into the details, but I think everybody needs to realize, and I think you all have experienced working with the railroads, we surely have. Norfolk Southern, we reached out to them when they did some maintenance work at the crossings, and also when they had their train stop at Henrico, which is the alternate access to the businesses on the 670 on the east side of Moreland Avenue. Because when they stop their trains at that crossing, what happens? Trucks back up on Henrico, There's no turnaround for them. They sit there and they sit there and they sit there for hours and hours and hours, and they back up onto Moreland Avenue, which is a bad thing. And so we reached out to them. They were responsive. They asked us to provide them with the highest average daily traffic hour that existed. We did counts for 2 weeks. We identified 2 or 3 hours within that 2-week period of time that seemed to have a lot more traffic crossing over the railroad tracks. And we gave that to them, and they are going to do their best not to block the crossing during those peak hours. And that was, we provided that information then 2 weeks ago, and we hope to have something successful from them, cooperation from Norfolk Southern to make that happen. It's just been a very precarious situation for the business owners. Business owners are obviously reaching out to the CID, complaining about loss of business and a whole bunch of other things because of both crossings being closed when that does occur. Outreach to the adjoining homeowner associations, we talked a little bit about that. We continue to do that even after the overlay district conversations occurred over a period of 2 months. We have a very unique project that we are working on together on. We're going to, as the CID and as associations that we're working with, we're going to make a presentation to the Board of Commissioners about some traffic calming projects that are important to them and also important to the CID. Because before Cedar Grove Bridge went out, there was still cut through traffic through their neighborhoods. And obviously with it being out, it has increased in problem. It's been very problematic. So we've got some ideas we're going to jointly present to the Board of Commissioners in the next couple of weeks. So Wade, with that, back to you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you. All right, I want to talk briefly about our findings from the inventory and assessment report, and just to kind of give an overview of this report, because it really is sort of the turning point, if you will, in the freight cluster planning program, because it really does kind of now we're heading down the home stretch. We're starting to identify improvements and so forth. So it does provide the basis for that, and which is of course supplemented by outreach efforts as well. It does also, it's important to understand, it does incorporate previous studies and plans. So, you know, the previous efforts of DeKalb County and the CID when they did their Greater Conley work, a lot of that has been incorporated as well. It certainly, you know, it works, it carries the gamut. So it looks at truck travel, general travel, safety, and land use and development. It does have it's a wide scope. And again, it also looks at both existing and projected conditions. So, you know, where we are looking at, of course, from a work program perspective, we definitely are really focused on that first 5 to 10 years, but we certainly need to understand what some of the projections are through 2050. So just highlights of the overall report are existing and projected conditions. And I know, so I apologize, it's a little wordier than I'd like, but there were, I guess the good news is from a capacity standpoint, there's very little congestion on the roadways themselves that are a result of capacity. And so, you know, Moreland is of course a 6-lane road or 4-lane road closer into Atlanta, but still the actual design is not an issue of the capacity. It's really more focused on operations. So that kind of helps us set the stage for the, you know, for moving forward and planning. And very little increase even in the levels of congestion, you know, that are projected throughout the entire area. Again, you know, again and if you take a look, you know, I'll point out, you know, of course, Moreland. There's a section of Moreland that's supposed to decrease to LOSD in 2050, but that's still not. That's still in a lot of urban environments. That's still somewhat acceptable. And also, I think, but when you couple though, and we'll talk about this, when you couple that LOSD with truck traffic, it does present some operational issues. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. You know, but the one little area that will need attention even after the interchange modification is complete is the that Boulder Crest Clifton Church Road. And of course, this is, it's already a problem now. And I think, from our modeling, it really kind of tells us there's a lot of traffic that's accessing the area from the Clifton Church Road, Gresham Road corridor into this to access 285 through that corridor. So that is definitely something that we'll need to look at. And so, but another more localized issue is this area to the Constitution to Moreland connection. And then we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, without improvements and without something, without some significant improvements, there is a projected congestion just connecting the Constitution, Bailey Road, Fayetteville, and that area in itself. So the truck travel, Moreland Avenue is the, other than the I-285, I should actually say 285 obviously is going to carry the most trucks. So it's designed to do that, and 675. But of course, the focus of this study really is more on the local street issues. So when you start looking at the local roads, I mean, Moreland is the primary local road carrier. It is the primary access to most of the industrial facilities in the CID. And it ranges roughly to 3,000 to 4,000 trucks per day. But when you start thinking about that per hour, when you start thinking about, especially during peak and daylight hours, and you're looking at, you're talking about some hours where you're having up to 200, 250 trucks per hour on a specific segment. And so that is significant in as far as promoting operations and so forth. And the increases in truck traffic, just based on the model, are roughly 16%. So as we move ahead, we'll certainly start to need to monitor some of the operations and so forth, and to try to streamline. So hopefully the RTOP corridor will continue to upgrade and be successful. And some of the freight safety issues I want to point out too is, and probably again, is that connection from Constitution to Moreland. We did see just freight accidents along that, and commercial vehicle accidents along that corridor. And I think, if anybody's really driven that corridor, you'll understand that it's really not designed to handle truck traffic. These are little neighborhood roads that have now kind of been thrust upon, and it's with truck traffic now along them. So. With the transit and active modes, honestly, the big picture here is because of the land use distribution and the way it's a very sparse development pattern. There currently really aren't any routes that really service the core of the CID. And reaching out, we will be looking at ways to improve access, workforce access, but from what we've heard, transit is not a priority amongst the CID membership, but it still doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be addressed in one way or the other. If we want to try to promote new development, I think we need to figure out, and we will be working on a way that maybe there's a way to actually, get some sort of micro mobility or some enhanced service to actually help the workforce access. From a bicycle and pedestrian, the two main facilities, we have the lake, the trails of Constitution Lake, and of course the South River Trail, Michelle Obama Trail. One of the things that we will need to address though is, and this really, this came about during the drafting of our inventory and assessment report. So I know we'll have some edits, but there is a new ADA park that is now being planned in the area of the entrenchment trailhead. So we will be working with the county to maybe get a better understanding about what those potential impacts would look like from both the vehicular demand, as well as what kind of supporting pedestrian improvements would be needed for that. Land use and development, just plain and simple, this is an industrial district. 40% of the existing land uses are industrial, and I think and a lot of the vacant and undeveloped land is also zoned for industrial. So it's definitely the focus of the area. But it is important to know that even 8% of the CID is residential. And so while it's a small percentage per se, it's definitely something that we definitely want to make sure that our recommendations take a look at mitigating some of these impacts to these neighborhoods, particularly with the, when we're moving forward with some of the proposed improvements that we'll talk about along connecting Constitution and Moreland. We'll certainly look at that. The development trends is really, it's really, and I know Stan Reese's on the call, there really hasn't been any. That's the big trend. And so, as Larry talked about before, the really key, we have had the Black Hall Studios was a big win, capitalizing on the vacant land in the area and also its accessibility and so forth. And they're going to be good partners with the CID. But other than that, there has not been any real new development, and that is in our existing conditions report. So something needs to happen. And so the first thing that did happen, as Larry said, is they worked with the county to modify some of these, just some of these minimum standards and so forth to make the area more flexible and more amenable to industrial development. And as someone who actually cut his teeth as a local city planner way back in Tarpon Springs, Florida, these modifications that you see here with fencing heights and tree planting, they may not seem like a lot, but when folks are putting together site plans and trying to make it work and so forth, I mean, these are little amenities that when you're competing against different areas of the Atlanta region, and so you need to go ahead and have a competitive set for development. So our planned and programmed improvements, they come from previous plans and so forth, and they've also come from, some of them have been validated by our inventory and assessment report, as well as the outreach process. I think it should be noted that what we've got shown here are some of those that are already planned and programmed. I think we do have, again, the traffic study that's underway that will also identify some more operational issues to help some of the other problem hotspots that come through this process. But just, obviously the Boulder Crest interchange, that's the big score. That's not going to be part of our overall work program that you'll probably see as part of the FCP effort, because it is already let for construction is going to be let in 2023. But it is important to know that help is on the way on that corridor. But the Constitution to Moreland connection is really what is really kind of what we've been hearing is the overall need. So there is a plan. There's a three-pronged approach for that. One is the actual widening of Constitution to make it more truck friendly, all the way through from basically where the industrial uses are off of International Park Drive all the way through to Moreland. But also the 5-point freight roundabout will also help. There's those of you that know the area, that Fayetteville Road, Bailey, Fleetwood, Woodstock, that intersection there, and that area is just super problematic for trucks to operate. So that roundabout should certainly help. And really the probably of all of these, one of the most, probably the thing that could happen first and probably could be done in the most immediate fashion is that Bailey Road signal. And I will say that when Larry and I have been out in the corridor and doing field work, we've tried to make a left turn from that signal, and from the folks making a left turn onto Bailey to access the district and so forth. We waited there for about 15 minutes, and we weren't even a full-fledged, semi-trailer. So I think, so that Bailey Road signal is definitely something that we feel is overdue. The other significant projects, again, are really more operational. The roundabout at Thurman Road and Old McDonough, for those of you that are down there, that's that little project in the southwest portion. And it's one where, again, it's a 5-legged intersection that just needs to be smoothed out. There's a lot of trucks that are going through that intersection from Cedar Grove to access the truck wash. And then on Old McDonough itself, there's a significant backup along with trucks waiting to get to that truck wash that really lend that to being a one-way road, essentially through most of the day. And so, which presents safety issues itself. From a bicycle and pedestrian standpoint, there's a lot of plans in the works from the DeKalb CTP. And so, you know, of course, the trail extension along the South River is probably the most prevalent, but there are others to help serve the neighborhoods to the north of the CID. That will be again, and that will also serve the new ADA park. So we'll certainly be working with the county to, you know, to make sure that we can make both sides, you know, both sides fit. We don't create conflicts between freight traffic and park traffic. So, and of course, all of this is happening with some significant studies. Of course, the part of what we will be doing is this process will be informing the DeKalb Unified Comprehensive Transportation Plan Comprehensive Plan process, which some of you are probably involved with as well as a parallel effort. Also, though, there were some studies, you know, the Moreland Avenue corridor had some recommendations for some more multimodal elements, and also the Boulder Crest Road has a multimodal study as well that was in the CTP, the previous CTP. So altogether, there are some plans along the Boulder Crest that should impact, and I think a lot of those should get wrapped up into the CTP and the comp planning process. So I know I hit you with a lot of words here, but I think these are the critical issues that will sort of drive kind of where we go. I think obviously the most critical issue is the Cedar Grove Road closure and a bridge closure. And honestly, even though we're planning, of course, our work program will plan for a post-bridge replacement environment. But I do think that it highlighted the overall need of, you know, maintaining a critical infrastructure point. I dare say that I think that the importance of that bridge was probably undervalued. And I think there are others throughout the region as well. And one of the benefits of a freight cluster plan is to kind of help identify where those critical pinch points are in your infrastructure and what could happen if that infrastructure goes down. And so that really does tie back into the resiliency issue. And so when we move forward with improvements, with recommendations and start developing potential projects, one of the things we're going to look at is ways to, you know, bridge or no bridge, is to, you know, maybe provide some options at that at-grade crossing at Enrico, given some of the Norfolk Southern issues. You know, it has catalyzed neighborhood coordination, as Larry said. So moving ahead, I think part of our recommendations will be as well is to continue that coordination to ensure that neighborhoods, intrusion on neighborhoods and residential uses, you know, remains at a minimum or becomes at a minimum, you know, once the closure and the traffic calming and so forth are done. Truck parking, as you can see in the photo to the right of the slide, it is an issue. There is just simply not enough supply to meet the demand. We are right now undergoing an analysis of looking at, you know, two real elements. One is the staging areas, providing maybe some potential staging areas in the district, maybe changing some, you know, providing some zoning changes and some development changes that can help with that. And also maybe some actual site plan changes as well that can maybe help accommodate more trucks and ways to actually just be able to meet that demand and also work with neighboring industrial areas as well, because just given the amount of demand, it's going to be very hard for the MSCID to be able to accommodate all of its demand within the district itself. You know, the mobility needs, I've touched on it. That Constitution Road to Moreland Avenue connection has just got to be made. But again, when you look at the projections on Boulder Crest, I think that's something, even with the interchange, that really needs to take a good look at what that future looks like. Maybe some access management and things of that nature to at least clean, you know, to help that corridor. And you know, there's just higher levels of maintenance that are going to be involved in the CID just because of the prevalence of truck traffic. And so, you know, those are some of the key issues that are going to drive our recommendations. But another item that really we haven't come across in our previous freight cluster plans, but this is a new one, is the vulnerabilities to the degree that they are. You know, we put these photos in here. What you see, this photo on the bottom to the left, that is actually an illegal dump site. that is actually hovering right underneath there is the Norfolk Southern, track. So looking at ways to really increase code enforcement, things of that nature will also be kind of part of our recommendations. And also, we just have to prepare again, and it really kind of revolves around the Norfolk, the resiliency issue. We just have to. We are vulnerable to Norfolk Southern, at least especially until that bridge comes back. But even with only one above grade at grade crossing, we still need to have provisions in place to really help. So if they do decide to clean the tracks or whatnot, that we don't have trucks stalled at Enrico all day. So at this juncture, we don't have a specific slide that says questions, though, Caroline. I think what we wanted to do before we went into the breakout group, we wanted to go ahead and see if there were any questions in the chat box, or if anybody wanted to raise any questions now about what they've heard so far.
Wade, we don't have anything in the chat box, but if anyone wants to unmute and offer a question or an observation, please feel free. Here's a question. How are you assessing truck parking demand in the area?
And honestly, that is a very qualitative process, unfortunately. We would love to have a more quantifiable way to do it, but without being able to go out and get on site and count trucks. So what we did do is we do have good aerial photography that has shown us kind of a baseline. So we took a baseline of the parcels where there were a significant amount of truck parking just through the aerial photography itself. Afterwards, then that allowed us to actually identify maybe on some of what we like to call unauthorized parking. We're staying away from the term illegal. We're calling them either authorized or unauthorized. And so the unauthorized would be either on street or off street. So the unauthorized on street was identified through some of the aerials, and then we went back and we surveyed Larry went back and surveyed some of his committee members and CID members. And so what we did find, we did identify a couple of areas where there is possibility of maybe providing some additional on-street parking legally. And so we'll work for ways to maybe create some staging areas and so forth on some areas on right-of-ways that aren't necessarily being used. For the off-street, unauthorized off-street, what we found is most of that unauthorized off-street parking is actually on lots that were soon going to be authorized. They were actually going through the development process to actually become legal parking lots and so forth. But I do want to mention one thing. This is really just from a land use perspective. If you'll see that convenience store, that is not what's on a site plan that was ever approved by any zoning commission ever. So one of the things we'll also have to do is work with some of the existing businesses to try to find ways to better accommodate some trucks. And so, so when we talk about, from a specifically zoning land use perspective, they were somewhat authorized if they would do this in a manner that was site plan conducive. So, hopefully that answers the question. I can't see the chat room by sharing, so.
So Wade, we have another question. I think you covered that one pretty well. So this says, Gillum Logistics is close to Moreland Avenue. Did your study find any impact from trucks going in and out of the logistics center?
Not right now, no. Our existing volumes really did not show a great deal. I think that movement is still being handled in large part to 75 by 331 by the Forest Parkway corridor. So for even northbound trips, we did not see a whole lot. They're accessing 675 and 75 through other means. However, we did see in our projected volumes a pretty significant increase along Moreland south of Conley, which I would have to imagine is being generated from the Gillum expansion and so forth, and some of the future volumes that are being projected.
So Wade, let me respond to one of those items as well. There's at least one, if not two, private sector permitted or future permitted logistics center parking facilities that are trying to come online with the county. One is in a very preliminary stage, and one is in the permit stage, I believe, right now. And so we hope that the private sector understands the value of having legal parking, permitted parking in the CID. CID has more than enough unauthorized parking that has developed over the years. And so we are, as a CID, we are doing our best to facilitate appropriate permitted parking in the CID boundaries.
And we should, since I do have our HRE folks on the call, we did actually supplement some of that truck parking, what we found on the aerials. We are supplementing that with HRE. HRE provides truck parking as well that we're just using as a checks and balances to validate what we've done. So, all right.
Wade, Wade, I have a couple questions too.
Sure, Daniel.
First one was, as you looked at a couple of these roadways, I was curious if you're also looking at, resurfacing or even rebuilding the roads, the roadbed, because the ones that come to mind would be like Henrico, which I know has become the alternate, obviously, with the Cedarburg Bridge closure. And I remember, hearing about in one of the meetings about, it doesn't really have a shoulder, and so trucks have driven off the side of the road, and because it's crumbled underneath them. And to me, that's more than a resurfacing. That might mean that the road was just never built to handle much of any volume of trucks and may need to be rebuilt from the start. Similarly, I would say that kind of Fayetteville Road, Bailey Road, kind of connection to Constitution Road. Constitution may need it as well, but certainly that kind of, curve going up to get to Constitution off of Moreland. It feels like you're in a rural area. And so both the asphalt itself, as well as maybe the geometric design, might need to be improved to really meet the volumes that are needed today.
Thank you, Daniel. Actually, that will be a recommendation moving forward. I think we presented at the last meeting. We do have some short-term improvements that are going on just basically to, for lack of a better word, call them triage. Just to keep the trucks moving and keep everybody moving in the CID during the closure. But yeah, it's clear, like little roads, even though they were built as small rural roads like Bowman Industrial and Enrico and so forth, given the level of traffic, and especially it's in the CID, it's in the region's best interest really to have, that viable corridor, that viable as a whole corridor and as a whole area really built for trucks. And I think, and it'll certainly, the membership, it'll certainly benefit them as well. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. That is definitely something to reinforce in some of these other roads for the reconstruction of them. You're right. You're absolutely right, Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know that CIDs don't always want to get into maintenance, but this one, it's more than maintenance, and two, is in the middle.
Enrico Road was never meant to carry this much truck traffic, and I mean, even pre-bridge, it was never meant to carry that much. But so you make a good point.
Right, but beyond the CID, I know obviously DeKalb County's doing their CTP update, as you know, so it may be a matter of trying to make sure projects get noted there. So whether it's funds or DeKalb County funds or DeKalb getting GDOT LMIG funds, this is relevant for trucks and for local residents and economic development. So, certainly want to identify those.
And I may be getting ahead of ourselves here, but Larry, I don't mean to catch you cold on this, but this is certainly one as we move through our recommendations phase. That kind of bundle of improvements sounds like something that would certainly be a favorable in a federal grant application process. You could definitely show some economic development impacts and so forth. And I think that's something we'll certainly look at.
Well, you don't have my list yet, but you will. And so that's just the Henrico shoulders, radii, every intersection. Constitution, as everybody may know, we've been working with the county in about the last 18 months. The CID received a GTIP grant in 2019 for the Constitution corridor. The county has asked us to scale back the project. We hope that the county can allocate some SPLOST monies to the scaled down version of Constitution. And so we are scaling down that corridor, utilizing that money from GTIB and some money from the CID for that corridor. So yeah, I mean, to have Constitution Road, Daniel, where it goes and what it carries, to have it as 11-foot lanes with no shoulder, just like Henrico. You have a 5-point intersection that you have trucks coming out of that construction debris landfill that Wade has on that diagram there. That is a horrendous 5-legged intersection. There is nothing worse that I have seen any place in Atlanta, any place. And so that is part of that GTED grant. So you're right on target, Daniel. We haven't got to that point yet, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Okay. All great feedback. One other follow-up, changing gears completely from the roadways to itself to Wade, some of your earlier slides you showed MARTA bus routes. You talked bike ped, but talked mostly about trails. I'm curious about putting the bike ped with the transit, and basically what I'm getting at is there are Metropolis CIDs in their freight cluster plan, right down the street, a little bit west of your study area. They found they had, pretty high ridership, all things considered, on some of the bus routes in industrial areas. But some of those routes, you get off the bus, there was no sidewalk, there was no bus shelter, there wasn't always a safe way to cross the street. And so they kind of saw those connections of, hey, here's some high priority sidewalks because we have a good bit of bus ridership. Maybe it'd be good to put some bus shelters in certain locations and then a couple locations where mid-block crossing was needed. So I'm curious if you're looking at those data sets together and saying, yes, we may not have sidewalks everywhere, but we should really prioritize here along the bus routes.
We are definitely going to look at, we do have boardings. We definitely do have boardings and amenities, and we'll definitely tie those up because there's a residential component as well, especially along Boulder Crest and the highest ridership is, of course, is around the correctional facilities, either for visitors and things of that nature. But we'll definitely want to make sure that we capture the multimodal demand. And that ADA park is a great example of something that could probably warrant an extension or modification of one of those routes or two of those routes, even to help service that location, kind of given what the demand will be at that location. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I knew you mentioned trails, but I didn't really hear sidewalks mentioned as much.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
that bus route to sidewalk connection, which is really key. That you don't want folks getting off a bus and then just traipsing through the dirt and the grass and so forth. So.
Yep. Good point. Good point.
Okay, that's all I had. Thanks.
Caroline, anything else in the chat?
Nope.
All right. Well, then I think it's time for you to take things over. Kind of run folks through the exercise. Essentially, what we'll do is I will give you sort of an overview of kind of what you're seeing on each of the mural boards, but then essentially for those of you who were last time, we're going to go ahead and do the mural again. I think we had some very good feedback last time around, and hopefully you found that we listened to you. Caroline, I'm going to go ahead and let you, do I need to stop share or can you do it yourself?
Let's see, I think I can share my screen myself.
Okay. Well, I stopped sharing anyway, so.
All right. All right, well, thanks everyone for your attention. Again, we're going to do these mural boards, which basically, can everyone see my screen? The thumbs up? Okay, great. Basically, what we're asking for is for you all to give us input. We'd love it if you'd unmute and give us some feedback, or you can chime in via the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. We're going to look at 3 different maps. The first right now we're looking at is a truck parking inventory. What we'd like to point out first are these highlighted areas. The red are where we found through the study the unauthorized truck parking. Yellow highlighted areas are reserved truck parking, and then green highlighted areas include non-reserved truck parking.
Yeah. And so I'll go ahead. And so reserved, again, that is where it's an industrial use. And so the trucks that are parked on that facility are associated with that use, or it's a private lot that actually has clients. And so it's not a dispatch. It won't be dispatched to park there. So that is what the reserved means. The non-reserved are those that you would like, that you would probably be more familiar with, is the pilot that's on Boulder Crest, the convenience stores that are handling probably 300 times more parking than they should. But and then the reds are again the unauthorized, and so some of the unauthorized parking is again the over on the southwest corner of the CID. That lot is now being permitted for illegal truck parking. But the two over to the east or south, those are illegal and scary and kind of scary. And there's a couple other lots too, and we'll work to do that. But I guess the main issue here when we talk through this is there's just a shortage of parking. And so I was just curious. Now like you said, we will be starting to look at staging areas and things of that nature. And also maybe some development recommendations. But I was curious if anyone on the call will open it up. If there's any areas where you think that we should try to encourage truck parking, or if there's any strategies that you think that we should do to maybe mitigate some of the unauthorized truck parking, or anything else, but anything that would help us maybe increase demand or increase supply, of parking in the area.
Wait,
Larry, this is Amanda. Is the project that Price Muir is undertaking, will that be within this footprint, or will it affect the supply and demand?
Yes.
Is that in the map? Is that taken under consideration? All right, thank you.
And that swallows up one of the illegal lots, actually. That's actually one of the illegal parking, I think.
Yeah, now it's legal.
Now it's legal, so.
Well, I'll just add a few things before anybody comes on board, since it's so silent. Wade, one of the areas that the CID has, CABA looked at before the CID was formed. CABA is the Connolly Association, Connolly Area Business Association. They're the impetus for the beginning of the CID development 5 years ago. They looked at this area right there off of right there in the Whitehall Forest, right there off of Boulder Crest. There's a development there. And I guess kind of hard to describe it to everybody, but you get off of 285 Boulder Crest, you're going westbound, and the very first exit, when you come off the exit on the off-ramp, right directly across from you is the entrance into Whitehall Forest. Whitehall Forest is one of the areas that you don't want to walk down at night by yourself. It is an area that has seen a lot of crime over the years. And so we have, over the years, last couple of years, introduced to the county possibility of doing some work down there that might result in a future development that really would help Pilot quite a bit. I think Pilot looked into that piece of property a number of years ago, and we would strongly encourage the county, with the CID assisting them, to consider redevelopment of that area adjacent to the Pilot parking lot, which is that green area to the south of that green area off of Continental.
All right.
Down further, a little further.
Right
about there. Yep.
Yeah. And I do understand this particular subject matter. So if we're not getting answers, we can certainly still keep moving forward. We just wanted to give this some time for the stakeholders to at least have a say. But it is sort of a specialized subject area, so we'll certainly keep moving ahead in our recommendations. It's not something everybody wakes up and starts thinking about truck parking. So, but I do want to we'll give it a couple more minutes. Caroline, is anybody else?
I think Daniel has something to say.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was curious if you had a map that really showed where available land is, because this is showing us where, I see various green space here and like the landfill and so forth, but I don't know where it could potentially go without pointing to something that I'm like, oh, that's actually a park, or that's right next to residential. It seems like we need some sort of land use analysis to kind of point, take out the we've got a lot of active industrial sites. We're not going to turn, you know, Old Dominion into a truck parking lot. They're already very effective what they're doing. But kind of what are the sites that are potential, you know, that could potentially be used for this, that you know, are either undeveloped or vacant lots that, you know, used to be something else and aren't green space. You know, we don't want to take that away. We don't want to impact Black Hole Studios. You know, we don't want to be right next to residential. You know, there's a lot of constraints. And I think once you put those in place, you really come up with a very small number of parcels that are even potential for truck parking. You know, just looking at aerial, I was seeing, you know, just west of 675, there looks like some undeveloped land with, you know, a billboard here or there and stuff like that. I don't know if it's big enough.
That is actually, you know, what you see there. Well, what you see there where the legal parking is that is, you know, that would be a great candidate for actual legal parking if we could, you know, because I think right now it's unpermitted use, you know, that it's going on there. So it may be an issue there. I think
I was even looking west of 675. It's something that's shown as yellow, but there's looking on an aerial, it looks like there's actually some area that's undeveloped. I think east of 675, you're probably going to get residential pushback.
Yeah. Well, this area up here, this area in between, say, the boundary and 675 is pretty separated from the neighborhoods. But I think you know, maybe the old landfill site may offer some opportunity as well. We haven't really looked into that in great detail. That's something that we could think about.
Hey, Wade, just as input for you, when you talk about truck parking, there's one thing to say we want to offer a location where trucks could be parked, but you want to offer a location where trucks will want to park. And most drivers are not going to want to park where there's no amenities. So unless they're looking at a location where you're just saying, hey, you can park your truck and leave it. But if you're looking at transient parking, because they're parking to wait to make a delivery or they're parking to do a DOT break just until they reset hours, they don't want to park in a desolate area where there's nothing around, there's no food in the restroom. So as you talk about some of these green spaces, if there's not a truck stop, there's not shopping, there's not, you know, any type of restaurants or anything of that nature in that area, it's just going to be a space that you'll create that won't get used.
You're right. I completely agree. And in fact, that is something to thank you for highlighting that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see who provided that because I can't see, but that's a good point. And it's not just providing a lot. That's a very good point. It's actually maybe working with some of where these existing amenities are, like where these convenience stores are, where we showed you where they have so many trucks. Is there a way to maybe work with adjacent property owners to work with some of these where convenience stores are and things of that nature? So that's a very good point.
Thank you. Wade, that was Michael Pickens with Snyder Trucking.
Thank you.
Michael was on the CID board for a while. So the challenge with the overlay district is the location of these facilities, as Michael spoke about. And I think we have opened up the overlay district requirements to have that occur more readily now in the CID. But as Michael said, it's a very good point. That is, you want amenities. And so the number of restaurants, if you want to call them restaurants, are very limited in the CID. And the CID was strongly encouraged more quality restaurants, I should say, in the CID. And it'd be nice if a developer came along that provided that mixed amenity of parking, short-term, long-term, as well as on-site restaurant that folks would like to eat at. And so that is very limited in supply in the CID. And so we have a lot of work to make that happen. Dan, to your point, the amount of available space that you could do that in the CID is extremely limited. But your point's taken, and we will do that. We will highlight those areas that meet the overlay district, that would accommodate parking short and long term, as well as the associated amenities. So Wade, we'll make sure we incorporate that into the plan. Good point, Daniel. And thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with the need for the amenities. And that's something we see with our other freight cluster plans. Fulton Industrial Boulevard is going through one right now and have had this exact same discussion of we have a lack of restaurants and we have a lack of quality restaurants. So, you know, when you bring in, you know, the VP of your company to look at something from out of state, there's, you know, a fast food restaurant at best along the corridor. And so you need both, and there's a lack of both at that corridor and yours as well. So certainly I think there's probably plenty of demand both from truckers, from industrial workers and residents. So it's just a matter of how do you make it happen.
Dan, way back when the CID was formed, my firm was lucky enough to be with them the very first year of formation. And I remember sitting down with a number of business owners, and the very first comment out of their mouth was, when we bring the vice president or the president of the company into the CID to show them our nice facility, there is, first of all, no quality restaurant. But second of all, and more important, is that if we want a Panera Bread brought in, it takes 45 minutes to bring it. There's nothing nearby. And so it's a real issue. And somehow we have to find a way to incentivize developers in some way to make that happen in the CID, because it's just not happening now at all.
All right. Anything else? I think we want to go on to maybe before we close out. I think these are all good points, and this is good. We certainly will, now that the overlay district has kind of been worked out, we'll certainly try to take a look at some potential lots, or I think maybe, Larry, also maybe some potential opportunities to combine some lots or something of that nature. And so we'll definitely, that's going to be part of our analysis that we pull together. So, all right. All right, Caroline, I think we're ready for the next map. It's 2 o'clock.
All right. So the next map is the commercial vehicle crash locations that were mapped. And you can see the legend over here that goes from fatality, injury, no injury to unknown. And you can see the corresponding dots and the locations within the district. And what we're really asking is to get feedback from you all about problem intersections, congestion or safety issues that are related to truck traffic, problem driveways, and then any improvements that you'd like to see. And then, of course, I'll also take comments.
So what you're seeing here, this map, again, these are just truck traffic. These are just truck crashes. Just to kind of give you an idea, and those are a good indicator. And so as you see, that that area around that Constitution to Moreland connection is definitely one that highlights. The 285 interchange at Boulder Crest and actually both 285 interchanges are certainly areas that we will be looking at as well. But then there are some other areas that are highlighted as well inside the CID, along Cedar Grove, along Bowman Industrial, and so forth. So we want in Copper. So we just want to kind of get your feedback on where these problem intersections are, whether you can validate where the crashes are, or if there's a driveway or anything like that. So of course, this does take pretty good familiarity with the CID and operations and driving the area. So I'll just open the floor for that.
Yeah, I'm Joel Gross. I'm the chair of the CID, and of course, the big areas, Bailey Street and Moreland Avenue, is the one that I've always been spoken about. Another place is further north of Moreland Avenue, where McKinney's corporate offices are.
Okay.
Turning in there is extremely dangerous. I know that we've had conversations with them. They've asked for some off-duty police, and I don't know if they've.
Caroline, I can tell you where that is. That. Caroline, you see way up north there, you see Eastland?
Yep.
Okay, go down to the very next cul-de-sac down Moreland. It's Moreland Industrial. It's right there. That's. And you are right, Joel. And that's another one that Larry and I noticed when we were doing field work and trying to get a left turn out of there, and the speeds, especially along Moreland, along that stretch of road, because there's no signals nearby. That is definitely one that where speeds are a problem. So thank you, Joel.
Yeah, I mean, on Moreland Avenue in that section, people actually drive like they're on the interstate. It's 45 miles an hour, and it's normal. You'll see people driving 70 along there. So that is really a consideration that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No. I want to add to that, because one of the concerns we have is when the Boulder Crest Bridge is being worked on, it's going to force a lot more truck traffic out to Bailey. So as that project comes online in the next year or so, it's going to force the Atlanta International Industrial Park traffic to go out. So it's really critical that turn signal at least is in place there at Bailey and Moreland Avenue.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that interchange project really kind of highlights almost the importance of the entire project, but at least at a very minimum, the Bailey Road signals. You're very correct.
So I'm going to keep running my mouth. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the areas that I've tried, I put it in the chat comments, but apparently I didn't do it correctly. But if you look at all the truck traffic that goes at Moreland Avenue and 285, from all the, when everything's, when Cedar Grove Road is running, all the truck traffic, they all come to one place, and that's Moreland Avenue and 285, especially on the south side of 285. Have you considered an exit ramp at 675 and Cedar Grove Road? Has that been ever looked at?
Larry, I'll let you back this up. That was actually considered a long time ago. That came up during our first steering committee meeting, and then it was taken off the books by GDOT. I guess, but I guess it didn't warrant, it didn't carry the warrants. But Larry, you may have more history on that.
No, that's exactly what I heard as well. I know if David or Patrice are still on the line, maybe they can offer something with regards to that. But it was a project at one point in time, long-term, Joel. But I don't know. I don't think it's on the short or long-term plan for GDOT at this point in time.
But the other thing it might do is it also might block some of the truck traffic from going into the neighborhood. Also, I mean, I think it might have a dual purpose, but
well, that one I most certainly would agree. It would probably go a long ways, considering most of that truck traffic going through the neighborhoods trying to get back up to 285 in the first place. So,
yeah, David and Patrice are online, but maybe they're not listening right now. But we'll check into that, Joel. I know we talked about it about a year or two ago, and I'll find out where that is, if it's in any plan whatsoever.
Larry, this is Dave. Yeah, that was looked at a long time ago, the Cedar Grove interchange, but GDOT came back and said that Cedar Grove was too close to 285. So there's a certain requirements for spacing between interchanges, and it didn't meet that spacing. So that's why it was eventually taken off the books. There was some talk at one point of working with Clayton County to try to maybe add an additional interchange a little farther south, but that was a long time ago. I don't think nothing that really came of that.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Just being mindful of time, I think if we got anything else, I think we'll kind of move on to the final board.
All right.
So what you see here, again, I touched on these before. I can kind of go back over these. So what you see here is a map of our plans. So what the planned and programmed roadway and projects as of now. And so this is a combination of stuff that's already been either in the DeKalb CTP or the Greater Conley Road, LCI, the Greater Conley Road, the project that they did there for the CID, the master plan. So just to kind of go over some of these, this is, of course, the Constitution Road widening that we talked about, that we discussed in detail to help that connection. The Moreland Avenue, this is more of this is just a corridor study. So it's not really an actual hard project. And the same goes for the Boulder Crest. These are multimodal corridor improvements that are going to be identified through further study. So But still, if you still feel if you feel the need for multimodal corridor improvements along Moreland or Boulder Crest, please go ahead and do that. Please let us know. Now this widening here, this is Boulder Crest south of I-285. That's also in the CTP. And then this project here is the roundabout again at Old Thurman Thurman and Old McDonough. And so we just want to kind of get your input on just how overall for the folks on the call, what you feel are the most needed projects. If there's any new ones that we haven't brought up that also may be needed. So if either you support them, you either oppose them, or if there's anything new, we'd like to know.
Wade, just mention also that as we develop these projects over the next very few weeks, we will provide those to Patrice and David as well as part of their CTP.
Yep. Yeah. So that is true. So in addition to these projects, again, these as well as those that come out of our traffic study are going to be compiled, prioritized, and then provided over to the DeKalb folks for inclusion and consideration in the CTP process. And so that it is important to know that we are trying to feed this process and so forth. So
you did everything perfect, Wade. No questions.
Hey, well, and you know what? I don't really, these have all been vetted before. So right. These aren't new projects to anybody on the call. So, it seems like, I think you give yourself credit, Larry. A lot of these you pulled together yourself. So during some future or some previous plans. So.
And what you don't show here, just so everybody know, what you don't show are those maintenance kind of activities, operational kind of work that Daniel brought up before. That's not reflected on here yet.
No, and also what's not reflected is the long-term, again, road reconstruction along like Henrico and Bowman Industrial and those streets within the district in the core of the CID.
We also make mention that there are two unpaved roads in the CID, which is a little unusual, I guess, for an industrial area. But those two unpaved roads will obviously also be put on our plan for improvements.
Yeah. And one of them in particular is Old McDonough. I think that's one area that there just south of the interstate that we'll certainly take a look at maybe connecting that if we're going to do the five lane roundabout there at that interchange, kind of maybe help serve that.
Wade, there's another area I didn't see that was addressed, and that is what used to be across where the Ace Hardware is. It's just it's south of Cedar Grove Road, Moreland Avenue. There's an intersection there that has seen a lot of accidents also, and our members down there keep bringing that to our attention, and it has not been addressed.
It's not Conley.
Blinking lot.
No, it's
not Conley.
It's East Conley and Conley at State Route 42, Moreland Avenue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it's like a 4-lane there, and the traffic moves pretty fast.
And that is one of our intersections in the traffic study. So we'll certainly be we'll be looking at that.
Great, thank you.
Hey, Wade?
Yeah, Daniel.
Going back to the Cedar Grove Road discussion about an interchange, it does make sense that it's too close to I-285, that you couldn't really do it from the north without building collector distributor lanes, which makes it much more expensive and probably cost prohibitive. But I do wonder about the potential for a half diamond going to.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Because if that existed today, that doesn't solve all your Cedar Grove Bridge problems, but it's providing access to and from the south on the east side of the bridge that's out. So you're getting to Old Dominion and so many of those that are currently cut off. Now you have to come up from the south So it, you still have some limitations, but it would, even if you had to drive more than south to get to Anvil Block to come back north, that's a lot faster than sitting at Norfolk Southern if they're going to, for extended time. And even when Norfolk Southern isn't blocking it, clearly Henrico isn't built for this volume of trucks. So, it's something where it could help with that, but also, as you said, may cut out some of that cut through traffic of trucks that may be getting off at Boulder Crest. You had this other option where they could get off there west and avoid the residential. Certainly it's not going to solve all your problems of residential cut through or access, but it provides another kind of layer of resiliency, and it would be not cheap, but cheaper than building a collector distributor system all the way up to 285 to do a full diamond. So
yeah, and that would also speak volumes for the resiliency issue as well. I mean, it definitely, it provides less reliance on those. It minimizes the impact that Norfolk Southern can have in the district through their operations. It looks to
be like about 1.8 miles from Anvil Block. Just me very roughly putting a distance into Google Maps. So it meets spacing requirements of the next interchange to the south, Anvil Block. And that's again just a rough estimate. You have to.
As soon as that came up, as soon as that was revisited, I thought about the half diamond, because the south, you couldn't get the whole thing, but what we really need is that connectivity to 285 more than anything else. And so, okay, makes sense.
I don't know what you found in any of your origin destination analysis, how much is coming from the south, even if it's just from interviews, but that'd be good information for that. Certainly that. It's just a discussion point at this point, but heard to have a conversation with GDOT about it and further, because I know that Clayton County is also looking at the area of 285 and Conley Road. So different segment of Conley, but pretty close by to kind of feed into the Mountain View area, looking at the potential for an interchange there, which was also looked at many years ago, and also had the constraint of being too close to adjacent interchanges, but. They're looking at that again with either an IJR or a feasibility study that ARC funded. So just because it got shot down before doesn't mean there might not be a justification at this point.
Daniel, where was that out? You said Mountain View and where?
I-285 and Conley Road interchange, so west of your area. It's closer to the airport, but it would feed into Mountain View. If you're familiar with that area, Conley, if you continue it west, Aviation Boulevard, and it had grade crossing at Old Dixie, which is under construction, nearing completion, where it's going to be grade separated at the Old Dixie intersection where it crosses a railroad line there. And so that was kind of a constraint going to and from the east. So it's expected to open up some of that Mountain View area that's just kind of been a dead area where people just, dumping trash and stuff like that takes place. And so this provides another access point into that area is kind of how Clayton County potentially looking at it.
Familiar with that area in great detail. I did the LCI study there way back for Grant, and I was in Clayton County. Yep, but yeah, that's a good point. Well, any other ideas? Because I think we've got a good flow of information, and I know we're sort of wrap up, but I want to give I don't want to cut anybody short. All right, Caroline, I think you can turn it back over to me.
All right.
All right, let me go screen share. So, next meeting topics, the next steps, if you will, we are going to actually bring in, when we developed this presentation, we really kind of thought it was further out, but we're actually talking with the Public Works Committee, the Public Works Infrastructure Committee at 3:30 today. So we'll be presenting to them some potential improvements. We will go ahead and next time report on.
Also, thank you, Dave and Patrice, for setting that up.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. That happened. Yeah, that's very important. We will be reporting back on the reports of the traffic study as well. The traffic study will kind of give you an indication on maybe how some of these improvements may be moved up, down, or maybe modified, and then going ahead and moving through our draft project list. By that time, again, we're going to have a draft list by August, but we'll have basically refine that. So by the time we get to the steering committee, it'll be sort of an unveil of kind of, where we are, what it's looking like, what we've worked out with the county and so forth. So with that, thank you very much. I'm hitting you with another one of those little QRS codes, and so if you want to stay involved, you can certainly scan and it'll take you to our website. But I want to just thank everybody for their participation. And Larry, any closing words?
No. Taking the time out of your busy schedule is very important to the CID. So thank everybody for participating here today.
Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.